Popular culture, as many of us in this room can attest, evolves over time, and in many ways it marks each generation, evidenced in music and film, sports and art, fashion, and commercial trends. Increasingly the focus of academic interest, popular culture influences the ways in which each of us experiences the world, most especially perhaps when we're young. Pop culture, its expression and exploitation, is an international phenomenon, worthy not just as entertainment, but also of our better understanding. This morning, we're honored to have with us two alumni from the class of 2006, who work today at the intersections of music and fashion, sports and media, hip-hop, and entertainment. Julian Patterson arrived at Roxbury Latin in Class 6 from his home in Brockton. Son of immigrant parents from Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, Julian moved through RL, buoyed by an enthusiasm for life that he attributes to his own West Indian roots. An autobiographical essay that Julian wrote during his senior year focused on the cultural traditions of the Caribbean, its food, music, clothing, people, as well as on his passion for soccer. He was a 4-year member of both the varsity soccer and wrestling teams at RL, earning ISL champion status for the latter. One of his passions inside the classroom was art, pursuing the department's most advanced offerings and earning an honors average on every art history assessment. Today, Julian is a content executive at Bleacher Report, the #1 sports publisher across all social media platforms with more than 125 million followers. From Bleacher's Report website, quote, "There's an ever-present energy that surrounds the world of sports. It exists on courts and fields and radiates from the airwaves of TV and movies, from the beats and lyrics of music, from the diverse threads of fashion, from the roars and sobs of fans, and throughout the cultural landscape in countless ways. Through creative expression, Bleacher Report delivers visceral, authentic moments at the intersection of sports and culture," end quote. During his tenure at Bleacher Report, Julian has been recognized for leading award-winning teams, spearheading social innovation, and co-founding the largest employee resource group in the history of the company. Julian earned his bachelor's degree from Colby College, where he was involved in various culture clubs and service organizations. Kaleb Rollins arrived at RL in Class 6 from his home in Roxbury. As a student here, Kaleb committed his talents broadly, including as a 3-season athlete and member of a New England champion track and field team. But his passion was music, sound, lighting, and tech. Not only was he a leading force on the tech crew, supporting a number of RL productions, but he also ran the sound and video support at his church and spent several summer weeks in New York furthering his skills in sound and lighting. In his college essay, Kaleb wrote, quote, "One way I cope with difficult situations in life is listening to music. Music is an escape for me from my problems. I would just sit in my room listening to an album or producing a beat. Music has become a main part of my life, not just because I gained some money from it, but because of the satisfaction of completing something and it becoming mine. That is one thing that no one can take away from me. If I can touch one person with music, then it is enough for me to continue. I hope that later in life, I will be influential in the music business and be able to reach a lot of people through what I do. I have been blessed with these talents and I feel obligated to use them," end quote. Today, Kaleb K. Quick Rollins is a multi-platinum Grammy-nominated songwriter, producer, and mixing engineer. Kaleb brought this passion for music to New York University's Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music, where he honed his skills as a producer, mixing engineer, and songwriter. Since graduating from NYU in 2010, Kaleb has worked with artists including Chris Brown, J. Cole, Alicia Cara, and Summer Walker. He has also written and produced songs for numerous film and television projects, including scoring a Sundance Film Festival short film selection. Kaleb has played a role in multiple Billboard #1 projects, 2 Grammy-nominated albums, and has won 2 Juno Awards for his work. Through Julian and Kaleb, we are reminded of the ever-winding ways one's path can take after one is launched by his student experience at RL. Please help me welcome back to Alma Mater this morning, Julian Patterson and Kaleb Rollins.
There it is. That was the Bleacher Report little sizzle reel. Well, first and foremost, I would like to thank Headmaster Brennan, Mr. Reed, and faculty, staff, students. Thank you for having us. It's great to be back at the One True School. What do you want to say to the people?
It's very nostalgic being back here and being back in this room specifically. Spent a lot of time in here, and it's great to see such a packed house. It was a little less students when we were here, so it's great to see.
So just a little bit about the format. We're going to have just a little catch-up conversation. Kaleb and I are actually really good friends, so this will be pretty natural, but we definitely want to hit a few topic points and leave as much room as possible for a Q&A towards the end, and I believe that there will be a little bit of a spillover session for additional questions if you have them. So, Kaleb, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning. We're going to run this podcast out, so let's start from the beginning. 60 year, the year 2000. What prompted you to gravitate towards music? And explain kind of like what that was like kind of at Roxbury Latin.
Yeah, so I mean, music for me was always in my household. My father, who's actually here, is an incredible musician. He plays multiple instruments. He's conducted orchestras and choirs. And so music was always in my household, and it was always something that I gravitated towards. But while here at RL, myself, Julian, and James Williams, one of our classmates, we would go to James's house, and we would just start making beats, which, like, we didn't really know what that was.
I mean, you guys were making beats. I was just...
You were watching. But, yeah, so, we would just, like, download software off the internet on a PC that we built, and would just kind of tinker around and just kind of explore what it was to create sound and to create music. And we didn't really know what we were doing, but over time, we got more in depth, and as I guess the internet was growing at that time, we were able to find more information on how to do these things and tutorials and things that you guys have so much at your disposal now. We were kind of towards the beginning era of that. And so, I took my own love for music, being able to use that in a way that I didn't know I could before was something that excited me and something that was honed here as well. I don't remember what grade it was. I helped create the wrestling theme song?
Wrestling theme song, yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to sample, music and put it together for the wrestling theme song, and they played it, at like what match was it?
Brooks. They were a big
you would
rival
know,
at the
'cause
time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the school's always been, open to me exploring that side of my creativity because it wasn't necessarily a common track, here at the school, or something that was, particularly a bunch of students were seeking. So, I was able to find, my core and my crew where we would just kind of experiment outside, and then be able to put that to use here at the school was really cool for me. And like for you, because I know, for you kind of took a turn from what you started doing, even from what you went to college for, to where you are now. So what kind of sparked that even in your early years?
Yeah, I didn't know I wanted to be like a multi-platinum producer in 60 year, but we got to Roxbury at a very interesting time, to the year 2000. Obviously, the internet was starting to become a thing, and my mind was just blown at everything you could access through the internet. And of course, Roxbury Latin provided ample resources for us to explore our curiosity. The Student Center, the Tech Center, the library, the Media Lab. And during that time, it was super interesting how everything was moving from analog to digital. You had something like Napster, which is basically like a peer-to-peer file sharing server. You could literally download anything. It was like downloading whole movies, like Fast and the Furious was like downloading, or you could download like whole Jay-Z albums, or even computer software. So I was just so enamored by how quickly you could access like literally anything, anytime, anywhere, any place. And then you also had Google kind of rising. You had social networks like MySpace, Facebook. You had Instant Messenger, AIM. That's kind of how I learned how to type. I wasn't paying attention to Mavis Beacon. I was just, you'd go to Roxbury Latin during the day. You would have practice, maybe play practice, and you go home, do your homework, and just be on AIM all night, talking to your friends from RL, or girls from like Dana Hall or whatever. And then the iPod kind of came about, and that was pretty crazy because for the longest time we would always be walking around with these Walkmans or discs. So we started with like cassette tapes, and then we had CDs, and then the iPod came along. And then it was pretty clear that the next step with the iPod would be the iPhone. The iPhone wasn't introduced until after we left Roxbury Latin, but I was just so enamored by all of this digital technology. I didn't know what to do with it, but I knew that there was something to do.
Right.
So I guess we can, transition out of like kind of, Roxbury Latin, but like, what did that path look like for you post Roxbury Latin, transitioning into Tisch, really starting to take your craft very seriously?
Yeah, so I would say, my 11th grade year here was when I started actually taking just this hobby and, really decided, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is what I want to do for a career. And my mother actually found the Tisch program because I didn't know where I was going to go to college. I just knew I wanted to do something with music. And so I didn't apply to many schools. I mean, there were some kids in our class, they applied 19 schools, 20 schools. But I just I didn't have that much bandwidth. I couldn't focus on all of that. So I applied to a few schools, and it was the decision between Berklee College of Music, which would have been a safety net for me, and being that I'm from Boston, I'm home, I know it's a great school for music. It seemed like the right choice. And then NYU, this brand new program, they were 3 years into that program at Tisch, moving to a whole new city that I had only visited a couple of times. And I just thought, well, for my growth, I think I need to step out. The music industry is New York. Like, I need to be in that city to have a head start on what I wanted to do for my career. So I took that leap. I went there, and it was the best decision I could have made because the relationships I made, even just while in school there, have helped me exponentially.
I think
in
day
my
one,
career.
you had already formed like a production crew
Day
at
one-
college. Like I remember seeing that on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's
So
just-
when you talk about Facebook and using technology and really relationships to build yourself, because that's really what it comes down to, what the technology has helped do. Facebook. So the department at NYU that I went, the Clive Davis Institute of Technology, very small program. There was maybe 20 students in my class. And we all found each other on Facebook the weeks leading up to school. And we coordinated so that for the opening, party, welcome week at college, we would all wear black. We would all find each other. We would be the cool kids to come to this thing, right? And so, but it was interesting because it made that first week of school seamless because everybody already had been in dialogue with each other, right? So I found friends that I've had for over a decade in that chat room. You know what I mean? And it's wild to go back and think of it that way because it's not like that was by design. Like that's what we were trying to do. We were just trying to connect, But it led to us, creating a company freshman year of college. It was a company that we started, a production company, and then when we graduated, it was formalized as an LLC, and we got a recording studio space, as soon as we graduated. It turned into a real thing and turned into a lasting business just from connecting with people as early on as possible. And so that kind of was those relationships was the catalyst for my career and the people I met and the projects I was able to work on throughout college and beyond. So I would say that, even it's even weird because it's like even me and you, like we collaborate on things and we connect on things outside of, of what we were doing here at RL, but keeping those relationships intact is really gonna take you far because you just have no idea 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, you look back at what those relationships have produced and you really see the value in it. And so that's what college was for me. What was it like for you, and what were you focused on versus what did you pivot towards?
Yeah, so I would always watch you, and you would always take a step, and I'd be like, okay, it's possible. So I would step with you, and we would always just be kind of in our own lanes, kind of rising. But after Roxbury Latin, I go to Colby. I'm studying biology. I'm on the medical track. I think my junior year, I had an internship at, I want to say, Children's Hospital in Boston. I remember that summer just looking around the hospital. I was shadowing an orthopedic surgeon, and I was just looking at the hospital. I was like, I don't know if this is something I can do for about the next 50 years. That'll be a tough one. So I end up just kind of, telling my parents, yeah, medical. So I finished out my my biology degree at Colby, and probably about the last couple weeks of school, I told my parents, well, I don't know if I'm going to go to medical school, but I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to study for the LSAT, which was a total lie. But I used that to really figure out what I wanted to do. Again, I mean, the internet was continuing to be a burgeoning force. I was blogging during class. I was blogging during work. It just seemed like, okay, this is what I naturally just do. Let me see what I can do with this. So I take a couple internships after graduation from college because I didn't have any credentials. I didn't have really any real working experience. So I took an internship at a boutique talent agency. We were booking artists like J. Cole, Wale, Mac Miller, Wiz Khalifa, Tyler the Creator. This was all in 2010. That transitions into an internship at Complex. That internship then turned into a full-time job at Complex, where I was the first social media hire at the company. And at that time, this was about 2012, that job field hadn't really been developed. There wasn't very many of us doing social media professionally. But I mean, it was just kind of the constant challenges of keeping up with the ever-evolving digital landscape and having just to always be early adapters. But I always think that necessity is the mother of invention. So in those hard times, or those times where you really have to figure it out, we come out of the other end of that with something like a Hot Ones, or we discovered Jesus and Miro, sneaker shopping. We started ComplexCon, which we billed as kind of the cultural Super Bowl. And then that kind of transitioned into my time at Bleacher Report, the #1 sports publisher on digital. You might even have the Bleacher Report app on some of your phones. But even that, it's been a great experience at Bleacher Report, but it's not always rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. Most notably, probably last March, the beginning of the pandemic, what do you do when you work at a sports media company and then they just shut down all of sports all across the world? I just felt like it was a time to, a lot of other publishers didn't really know what to do in that moment, but I felt like it was a time to really break away from this ESPN narrative of just sticking to sports. I think that we can't do that anymore. You can't just compartmentalize every part of your life, especially with this, you have a smartphone on your Instagram feed. You have, a mishmash of everything. So I just felt like, let's, tell the stories that need to be told and, really dig deep with some of the athletes that we all kind of know and love.
It's interesting because, we talk about the pandemic and you talk about the pivot you had to make where your industry was completely shut down, or just the source of material for your industry was shut down. And I go from, it was a very strange year because in January, well, really February of that year, it's the Grammys, and this is my first major Grammy nomination to the world being shut down. And so it was all these plans that were made, all of these, things, anticipation. Okay, yeah, we can build momentum.
I felt that I was texting you when you got nominated. Yeah.
And so how do I produce music? How do I create this energy, create honest music with people without being in the room with them? And that became the journey of that entire year, and still is a bit of a journey now, is to, using technology to still connect, to still find ways to collaborate, to still find ways to be productive, to still, to still find ways to network. And so it was a lot of Zoom, it was a lot of YouTube, researching different technology to stream what I'm working on my computer to somebody else's computer over the internet, and recording them over the internet, and just so many different ways that, companies that have existed, but just they didn't have as much of a, Zoom has been around for a long time, but it just took a whole new life to it. And those are the kind of things that when you're met with those obstacles, how do you pivot? Do you just step back? Do you just, do something else? Or do you figure out how to make it work? And I feel like, like what you said with figuring out what is the type of content that we can make that still makes sense for our brand, it was me, how can I still connect with artists, with songwriters, with musicians, and it still feel good. The music that comes out to still feel good, and that's been, an interesting journey that's still happening now, because we're not out of this thing, evident to us all, well, not us, but
Everyone
being
wearing
in masks,
masks, yeah.
it's still a reality, and it could be a reality for the foreseeable future. So it's about finding ways to, kind of pivot and be smart about the
Yeah.
decisions you make.
So pandemic aside, like kind of having to work around some of the obvious challenges, I mean, what else does your work entail, basically today?
Yeah. It's funny because, you think, oh, music producer and Grammy nominated and all this. You think everything is glamorous and, oh, I'm just partying and making music. And it's not the case. It's funny. Last night, I was up till midnight trying to deliver a song to a label. And they're texting me saying, hey, can we do this change? Can we make this change? Can we make this change? And it's all things that aren't really in my job description, but you kind of have to get done. My day-to-day, I would say, is part just creation, just coming up with new ideas, coming up with new musical ideas. It's part emails and just catching up on managers and artists and labels, checking back on projects, making sure that things are on track. And then it's also part just exploring and experimenting with new sounds and new ideas and new concepts. And when I'm in the studio with an artist, my role can change because I've always made it a point to learn as much about music creation and the different aspects of it as I could, which is why in my track at NYU, I was music engineering, music production, and songwriting. And I try to have a healthy dose of all of that so that when I'm in with the artist, I can guide them in each of those ways. Because some artists are more proficient at writing than others. Some artists have an ear for production, but some don't. So I can kind of fill in where there may be a need. So, I could be recording them, mixing them, or I could be actually creating the music and collaborating with them on the lyrics. So it's a very varied thing. Sometimes it's just going out to see shows and going out to see new artists to get re-inspired. And some of it is just saying, hey, I'm not available today and resting and just watching Netflix with my girlfriend, because you need to take that time. It's very easy in the music industry to just go nonstop until you crash. And I guarantee you that's what it was like for all throughout college in the first couple years after graduating college. Because, when those loans kick in, it's a different ball game. But over time, just maturing and just honestly, being able to manage my time better, it became a lot easier where I would say like, no, I'm unavailable this weekend. When I was younger, I would feel like I had to be available all the time.
You kind of have to, yeah. You have to earn your keep a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. So your industry is like a non-stop 24/7 thing. What is that like for you in terms of your day-to-day?
Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting into. Like I almost foolishly got into social media. If I knew what this was going to be, I don't know if I would take it on. But I just want to Bleacher Report is basically just a national sports media entity that basically exists to record, broadcast, and just make sense of everything that's happening in the sports world and the broader culture that it inhabits. Bleacher Report's we manifest our presence in an app. We have a .com, a website. I'm head of social. We also have Turner Sports owns us, so we have a TV presence. So something like tonight, NBA on TNT will be broadcasting live, maybe from Golden State or maybe from New York. There are two different big games that are happening tonight, and then soon to be, we will be heavily featured in the HBO Max app. Basically, Warner Media owns Turner Sports. So a typical day for me, usually get some intelligence briefings from my staff. I'm usually reviewing that day's programming slate or that week's programming slate. So as I just mentioned, we have the Nets versus the Knicks tonight. That's a big New York matchup. And then also the Warriors versus the Suns, the number 1 and number 2 teams in the Western Conference. So I'm either kind of reviewing what we're doing that day or that week. And then just longer-term strategic thinking, short, medium, and long-term projects. So a short-term project in the next couple of weeks, we're working with Michael B. Jordan on an HBCU basketball showcase, medium term, working with Allen Iverson and Kid Cudi on something for NBA All-Star in Cleveland, Ohio, and then long term, we have a great relationship with the U.S. men's national team. The dream for me is to be on the plane, to Qatar with Weston McKinney, Pulisic, Tyler Adams, that whole crew. So, and then of course you're just always talking to the platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, the players, the teams, the leagues, the agents. It's 24 hours nonstop. It's hard to shut off, but it's important to take that time, as you were saying.
Right.
And now as I've grown in my career, I have a little bit more time to actually think about what we're doing, versus when you're first doing, you're just go, 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 and you don't really know what you're getting into or what that action might create other
Right.
problems or other actions that you must do. So, 10, 12 years into the game now, it's definitely evolved in strange but awesome ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Really.
So let's talk about kind of like the bigger picture. Let's talk about the why. Why music? Like why?
Yeah, it's funny because hearing Headmaster Brennan give that wonderful introduction, which I remember when I read my college letter of recommendation from the school, I was like, I didn't know I did all these things. I didn't remember I did all these things. But what struck a chord with me is in that excerpt from my college essay about wanting to make a meaningful impact with music, and it's always been, I've never been the person, like, I've never pursued being an artist per se, even though I may have been on records that have been released. I love being a supporting role. And I feel like that's kind of been my passion, is supporting other people to realize their creativity and to actualize it. And I feel like, which is why I made it a point, is to know as much about each parts of the process as possible, so that if anybody needs something, I can fill that role. When it comes to creating a song, I can jump in and be of service to help, see that song through. And for me, the ultimate, realization of it is when I go to see a concert and of an artist that I've worked with, and I'm hearing the songs that we've created, and I'm seeing the reaction from the crowd. Like, that to me is the full circle moment, because to me, live music is the ultimate connection between an artist and their fan that you can have. It's the most pure, interaction that you can have. And just this last tour with Cole, with the off-season tour, just seeing the Barclays, or every venue we went to, he sells out arenas on this tour, right? And so we're in the Barclays, and a song that I worked on comes on, and at that moment, in the section of the song that I helped create, they cut the music off, and the entire arena sings that part. And for me, like, that's the connection and the power of music, is that everyone collectively, they don't know the next person to them, in that arena, but they all collectively gather around this one thing, this one piece of art that didn't exist at one time. And to me, that's what I like being a part of, is being a part of something that didn't exist 2 seconds ago, and now there's this idea out there that people can connect to. And so that's kind of what's, when I was younger, I didn't realize was my why. I was just having fun. But then the more I kind of looked into the choices I made, and to why I went to this school, and why I chose this path, and why I gravitated towards this part of the industry, rather than being the one, on the stage, is because I want to create and help create those connections and those moments through music. And that's what is fulfilling for me. So what drove you? I remember you saying, like, the internet was something so fascinating to you. What drove you to your specific, field?
It was just like you, just a deep desire to make an impact, a deep desire to make a contribution back to the culture that kind of raised me, hip hop culture. Hanging out with you obviously was a big influence, but I got to shout out my sister, who would order all the magazines and show me, exposed me to so much culture, and I just wanted to pay it forward. And my purpose that I think I'm on this earth to do, at least right now, is to help grow the social media job field for current and aspiring professionals, because I really do truly believe that social media opened so many pathways up to me. I can only hope to pass that joy and that grace along to as many people as I possibly can. So I guess, like, what role does music play in society? You kind of mentioned it's almost like kind of a universal language. But what is the role that music plays in society?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a whole 3-hour lecture. But to me, music is one of the most powerful, music and sound in particular, is one of the most powerful things to communicate, right? You know, when you think back in the dark ages and you hear the drum, it's a warning, or it's time for war. When you think of the sirens going off, you know what that is. And there's such power behind frequency and sound, and there's plenty of science behind it. That music at its core, in its purest form, is a way to connect and unite. And that's how I feel. Now, there's been music created to divide, and there's been music created for other purposes, but at its core, music is something that can really, unite people who don't even speak the same language, but they can sing the same song, And so to me, like, its power and it's being used properly is something that can help influence change. It can help bring joy to people who just don't have it. I mean, there's people I know, close friends I know, that they say, like, they were on their last at the brink of the edge, and there's a specific song that they heard, and it just changed their whole outlook on life. And now that song has such a much more meaningful impact. And, like, there's not many things that can do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you just hear it, and it just changes your perspective and changes your outlook. And so I see music as being one of the most important things that the world has to offer, and I think that the onus is, on the creators of music to understand that and recognize that power and use it in the right way, and use it in a productive way, and just to uplift and to speak to people's stories and to people's experiences. And so, I would say for you as well, like, the power of media and of, entertainment and technology, like, what do you see its impact in, culture
Yeah,
overall?
I think sports, music, food, fashion, art, these are all universal languages that, the commonality or the common thread through them all is just they evoke emotion. Like you said, like, you're an entire arena of people you don't know, but you're singing the same song. So you've had similar experience listening to the same record over and over and over again. And in that way, you're just connected with thousands of people. Maybe I'm not solving, cancer or performing brain surgery, but what we do is necessary. If, in the monotony of life, you open up your Instagram feed and you see a Bleacher Report post, and we do, like, a cool NBA anime thing, or we flip Succession in a crazy way, like, and that, helps get you through the day, then, that's gold for me. And I also just think that not everyone's supposed to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer. Someone has to be the platinum rap producer. Someone has to be the media executive that runs the programming for the television or the social media that you watch all day. So, whilst those jobs are available, why not us? And I guess just to round out our conversation, is there any advice you'd like to give to your 60 self?
See, where are the 60s? Where are the 60s? Wow. Oh, see,
Going on,
they put
60s.
you in the back. It's all right. You have the best vantage point. Oh man, if I've thought about this a lot, and what it boils down to for me is relationships you build. Like, it's very easy to just go through school and treat it as, oh, I need to get an A on this project. I need to do this. I need to make my parents happy. I need to get into good school. I need to do this. And trust me, I know that there's plenty of pressure like that, in an elite environment like this. but really cherish the relationships that you have with the people next to you, because that is what, when you look back in your career, oh, they helped introduce me to this person, or they were there at my wedding, or they saw my first kid get born. You know what I mean? Like, those are the meaningful connections that you make early on in life that last and they stay with you. And like that is more important than any success you're going to create, because they're going to be right next to you when you're having that success. And so what
I've
advice
known you
would you
21 years, I've known Lamar 21, Jeff 21 years. It's
Yeah.
Darian 21 years. So for me, I would say being yourself is your greatest superpower. Like, think about it, guys. No one else has the ability to be you or do what you do. It's very powerful. And I think, like, with great power comes great responsibility. So think about what you want to do with that. And then the other thing I would just say is, if you can survive Roxbury Latin, you can literally do anything else in life. This is coming from a C mather. I was in C math the whole way. C math. Like, if you can survive like a Mr. Carroll C math, you could literally survive anything in life. So, persist, push on, and get that degree from Roxbury Latin. You can do anything in life, guys.
And we'll see you here in 20 years.
So I think it's time for the question and answer portion. Thank you. Who's going to be the brave first? Here we go. Front row.
I feel like culture, especially when it comes to music, is one of the most important aspects of it, and the creation of it, and the consumption of it. And I would say my upbringing, I mean, my father was playing like gospel music in the house. He was playing, James Brown in the house, Stevie Wonder. Like, culture, it influences you so much to what you end up creating. And so I feel like every time I sit down and create, I'm just an extension of what I learned in the house. I'm just an extension of everything I consume, being around my family and around my culture, and it's ingrained in me. So anything I touch has a bit of that, and I think there's some power behind that, and it's kind of, what grounds you when you think about it. It's like, okay, why am I doing this? And then you look back on those times where you were listening to music with your parents, or your brother was putting you on to this project, and that kind of steered your musical taste and your taste for creation. So I feel like it's been a super important part to my existence as a producer.
And then just in corporate America, I just demand that I be my authentic self. First and foremost, I am a human. I'm Trinidadian and I'm Jamaican, and I bring that with me anywhere I go. And I encourage everyone that I work with to be their authentic selves in the workplace. And that manifested Bleacher Report in being able to tell authentic stories about the Black community, about the AAPI community, about the Hispanic community, indigenous cultures, LGBTQ plus community, women. You almost have to carry yourself, your full self, into any room and be confident in who you are, and the impact that you make on the world, and that you're going to make on the world. I really don't know how to exist any other way, and I align with corporations that allow me to do that. If they don't allow me to do that, then I will not be affiliated with you. This is 2021, about to be 2022. We're evolving as a society, so I encourage people just to be their full selves, be yourself. The creator's dilemma.
Yeah.
It's a gift and a curse, because you could literally create anything, but then it's like, oh wow, you could like literally create anything. Oh my gosh, like where do you start? Like, how do you start something from scratch that had never been created before? And I don't know if you create records with the intention of, I want to sell 1 million units of this and become multi-platinum.
The moment you do that, you don't sell anything.
Yeah.
So man, this is a thing called writer's block. which is it's a term in the music industry where it's just like you try to get it out and it's just not coming. It's funny. It's something that that J. Cole actually taught me on one of the tours we were on. We were on the tour bus, and he said he used to hit writer's block, and he used to only write when he was inspired. He used to only write. He's one of the greatest lyricists, undisputed in hip hop. He used to only write when he was inspired, and he studied sports so much. I mean, he played in the African League in the NBA, and he looked at sports. You don't just play when you're inspired. You don't just practice when you're inspired. You don't just practice your free throws when you're inspired. You do that every day, and those moments when you're inspired, it's magic. So he said he changed his writing approach, and he wrote a little bit every day. Now, is he going to write a hit song? Of course not. But his pen is sharp. His skill set is sharp. So that those moments where the inspiration hits, he can take full advantage of the opportunity and write what needs to be written. So if you look at those ruts in creativity from a different perspective, those are just the growing pains to get you to that next magical moment. It's less of a scary thing, and you don't really find yourself doubting yourself in those moments. You're just like, all right, well, I missed 50 free throws today. Cool, I'll be back tomorrow. You know what I mean? So that when you're in the game and you're and it's 3 seconds left and there's you have 2 free throws to win the game, you're ready for that moment. That's not the first time you're in a pressure situation. So I have scrapped writer's block out of my head and just treat it as a learning experience and just sharpening my tool.
I mean, we can start with Virgil Abloh. Just while it's very topical, I mean, he's one of the greatest creative minds to have ever lived, at least in modern history. But on a personal level, I would say, in real life, I would say Noah Callahan Bever. He was the editor-in-chief of Complex for about 11 years. He's my mentor. He has taught me so much about media and culture and how to connect. And then, just who I'm a fan of, I love Pharrell. I also love Quincy Jones. Those are people who have produced at a high level for decades and decades and decades. I'm a little bit over a decade into my career, but I always ask people who are far ahead of me, how do you maintain excellence for so long? How do you keep Rock Street Latin going for 300, going on 400 years? That's anyone can pretty much achieve like extreme success for a short moment, but how do you achieve longevity? And that's something that I always be searching for. I don't think you can it'll ever be achieved, but I think it's something that you should always strive for.
Yeah, one of my mentors, especially when I moved to New York, my father connected me with this incredible musician, producer, Ryan Leslie. And he was somebody who he was a musical genius, but he took full advantage of the internet and YouTube specifically when it first came out. Like just go back, just YouTube Ryan Leslie and just watch those old videos of him creating. He was kind of an innovator in that sense. And he taught me a lot about work ethic because I did like a apprenticeship with him for a summer, and it was 3 months, 14 hours a day in the studio, nonstop. My proficiency got skyrocketed in that time, and so he's somebody I attribute a lot of my work ethic and my proficiency to, and helped me grow a lot as a musician.
Well, I'm not going to pretend like I didn't hear the bell. Okay, we have one more question. What's your name? John asked on Bleacher Report on Instagram when we overpost LaMelo Ball and people are commenting LaMelo Report or LeBron Report. Yeah, I'm well aware. Honestly, I was yelling at my team yesterday about this very thing. To be honest, it's just their opinion, and the ultimate thing I would just say is like, we will stop posting LaMelo Ball if you stop watching him. So like, who are you mad at, us or yourselves? We basically serve the sports fans based on analytics and how many people are watching what, And if LaMelo Ball is the person of the moment, then we're going to put him on the programming slate most often. Yeah. Thank you.